Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Intuitive Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Pott. I'm an intuitive guide and certified marriage mentor, and I'm here to guide you on a journey of self-love and awareness. Together, we'll explore how tuning into your intuition can create a deeper, more meaningful connection with yourself and your partner. So welcome. I'm glad to have you back if you are a recurring listener. And if you're new, well, I'm very happy that you found me. This week, I'm thrilled to get into a topic that was discussed on last week's episode, and that's communication, but specifically focusing on verbal processing. This is a concept I recently heard about from a business coach, Jennifer Allwood, on her podcast. And this idea really resonated with me, as I'm a verbal processor myself, and it's helped me to understand not only my communication style, but also how it impacts my marriage. In this week's episode, we'll explore what it means to be a verbal processor, the strengths and challenges it brings, and how to communicate effectively if you or your spouse have different processing styles. Let's dive into these different processing types and find ways to make our communication more intuitive, open, and deeply connecting. So let's start with the foundation. What is verbal processing exactly? Verbal processors work through their thoughts by speaking them out loud. Talking helps find clarity, I guess. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she says that she speaks out loud all the time, talks to herself. And it's just her way of sorting out her emotions. And it actually can often lead to insights that you might not have reached otherwise. For example, you may notice that as you talk, you uncover new perspectives or resolve something that felt muddled before. So as a verbal processor myself, I have found that talking things out is essential, especially when emotions run high. Now, however, being aware that not everyone processes this way, it does help us to find common ground. And in a relationship, if one partner is a verbal processor and the other isn't, it can sometimes lead to misunderstandings, as verbal processors can feel a strong need to talk things through, while their partner may need time to listen or reflect first. And I actually need to reflect first before processing verbally. So, which is very interesting, because you'll find that you will resonate with more than just being one type of processor. So let's go over the different types of processors and communicators. Verbal processing is only one way of working through thoughts and emotions. Here are a few other types of processors and communicators you or your partner might resonate with. And be on alert. You may resonate with 2 or 3 of these different types of processing. I know after reading this and researching and listening to Jennifer Allwood's podcast, it's very, very interesting to see you're not typically just one. So it's kind of fun. So an internal processor, they prefer to work through their thoughts on their own. They need quiet, personal time to sort through emotions and ideas. For these individuals, jumping into a conversation without time to reflect can actually feel very overwhelming. And they might need to journal, meditate, or simply just sit with their thoughts before feeling ready to talk. I know it's very important for myself to journal my thoughts, and I work through them that way as well. Written processors. Here again, it jumps back onto the journaling. Written processors find clarity by writing down their thoughts. This might look like journaling, list making, or even writing a letter to themselves or their spouse. Writing helps them to slow down, focus, and organize their thoughts in a tangible way. These individuals often communicate best when they've had a chance to write things out beforehand. Now, I definitely practice this type of processing as well. I need to go internal. I usually meditate, think about what was said, and then I need to write it down. And number 3, there's also visual processors. So they benefit from visual aids like diagrams or drawings to understand their thoughts and feelings. Creating a mind map or flow chart can help them see connections and process emotions more effectively. In marriage, they might feel more comfortable expressing themselves through visuals or finding common ground by sharing visuals that represent their thoughts. So I thought that was a very interesting one. Myself, sometimes I need a drawing if I need something explained to me, like if we're building something onto the house or doing something with the garden. I like to have some kind of a drawing or a chart, but not necessarily for my emotions. So that's very interesting. And then there's oh my goodness, I'm going to get this word wrong. Kinesthetic processors. I think I said that right. They need movement or physical activity to help them think clearly. Now, they might go for a walk, engage in a hobby or exercise to let their thoughts flow. So if your partner is a kinesthetic processor, let me know how badly I'm butchering that word, please. You may notice that they open up more easily during or after physical activities, like a shared walk or even household tasks. And I find this really interesting because it got me thinking, sometimes when you have, a physical intimate moment with your partner, and then we have like what's called pillow talk. And sometimes pillow talk can happen prior to the physical intimacy. But often it's sort of your release of your energy, and then maybe you're a little more relaxed to talk. So I'm just wondering, that's interesting. Anywho, so understanding these different processing types is actually a gift in marriage. By identifying each other's style, you can create an environment where both partners feel respected and understood. This awareness brings us back to the importance of communication and adapting our approach to each other's needs. So I'm definitely a verbal as well as internal and written. And I don't honestly think that any of us are just one. If you are, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. But I have a feeling we're all a little bit of each in some form or fashion. Now, when one or both partners are verbal processors, this can be a wonderful strength in marriage, but it does come with some challenges. Here's how to make verbal processing work effectively in a relationship. So some of the benefits of verbal processing are you have increased openness. Talking out loud helps verbal processors to be vulnerable and open, sharing their thoughts in real time while it's happening. You get stronger empathy. When verbal processors are heard, it can build empathy. Their partner has the chance to understand what's happening in their mind and in their heart. So it creates that sense of closeness. And it also encourages clarity and problem solving. Often by verbalizing thoughts, we arrive at solutions we might not have seen if we'd kept everything bottled up. Talking things out can bring clarity and understanding in situations that initially seemed really complex. So let's talk about it. Boundaries in verbal processing. So be mindful of timing. Sometimes verbal processors may feel the need to talk immediately, but their partner may not be ready. So a simple check-in like, do you have time to listen right now, can create a space for both partners and allowing for those pauses. So in a conversation, especially in a disagreement, giving time for pauses allows both partners to reflect. And for a verbal processor, this might be very challenging, but it's essential in allowing both perspectives to be heard. So I personally like to, depending on the discussion or disagreement, I will verbally process, or I will go internal and then verbally process, just so that I'm coming from a calm, peaceful mind. And I've sort of had a chance to internally figure out exactly where I want to go with the conversation. So, like the verbal processing. But sometimes, depending on the situation, it happens right away. The verbal processing happens because my husband is also, I believe, a verbal processor. He's, I think, very similar to myself, but um, he is also a very much into being a verbal processor. So we need to be mindful of each other and give each other the space that's needed and those pauses so that we can feel like we're being heard and just, being respected, really. So how can you, support each other's communication style? So now that we know about different processing types, let's explore how to bring them together harmoniously in a marriage. So if you're a verbal processor, communicate your needs. Let your partner know when you need to talk something out, but remember to ask if it's a good time. So setting an intention to listen actively and avoid overwhelming your spouse will make the conversation feel balanced. Use I statements. This helps to keep the focus on your own feelings, and it reduces any potential defensiveness. Phrasing things like I feel or I think allows you to verbalize without unintentionally assigning blame. And if your partner is the verbal processor, practice active listening. Listen without immediately trying to solve the problem. Let them work through their thoughts. And if you're unclear, ask gentle questions to clarify. A simple, is there anything specific you'd like me to do? Shows that you're listening and you're open. And give gentle feedback. If a conversation feels overwhelming, let your partner know. Say something like, I want to be here for you, but can we take a break and revisit this a bit later? This helps keeps the conversation positive and allows both partners to recharge, and explain why. And now, supporting other processing types. If your spouse is an internal processor, give them that space to think things over. Respect their need for quiet time and set a time to talk when they are ready. For a written processor, suggest that they jot down thoughts before the conversation, and if it helps, they can share what they've written or use it to guide the discussion. I have done that in the past. I have written down things that were said, things I said, things my husband said, how the conversation went, just so I can review it, because I don't always retain things in my mind. And so then I can kind of see what was the context, and it allows me to just process it internally before I bring it to the discussion, before I bring it to the table. Kind of want to know I have all my ducks in a row. And with a visual processor, you can try drawing diagrams together or use whiteboards, sticky notes, or digital tools to help visualize ideas and emotions. And for kinesthetic processors, suggest a walk or an activity you can do together, which allows them to process while they move. And this can help the conversation feel more natural and relaxed. So now that we understand these different communication styles, here are some practical ways to make it work. First, have a weekly connection routine. I talk about this all the time. Just connect with your partner. Set aside a regular time each week to check in with each other. It can be daily if that's needed. But where can each of you process and discuss your thoughts in this nice and safe space that how do I explain this? I guess like in your natural setting, in the preferred style, at home, you're comfortable. Just set a time. Set the stage so that's a safe space for you to connect with each other. It makes the space for each person to feel heard and understood. Set boundaries for processing. Especially if one of you is a verbal processor, create a system where you can check in on timing and make sure that both of you are ready to engage fully. And use written or visual aids when needed. If a conversation feels complex, bring in tools that align with your processing style, whether it's a journal, a whiteboard, or simply taking some time to step away and think before you talk. Well, I guess that's a wrap. Guys, thank you, you beautiful souls, for joining me again today if you have made it this far. It's been so fun to just explore the world of verbal processing and the variety of ways that we communicate and process in marriage. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to communicate, and it's all about finding what works best for you and your partner. I absolutely am very passionate about communication. It's what keeps us as strong as we are. And by understanding our communication styles and honoring each other's needs, we can create an environment where both partners feel respected, they both feel seen, and truly heard. This awareness helps lay the foundation for an intuitive, thriving marriage that celebrates both individuals. My beautiful souls, please share this episode with one person to help grow my show if you enjoyed it or you feel someone might resonate with it. And until next time, keep nurturing that love within yourself and your marriage. Remember, every conversation is a chance to connect more deeply. So go and do some more connecting and have fun with it. Until next time, bye for now.